On this episode of AV Week, voice control among consumers, getting ready for resimercial, and designing and installing dynamic workspaces. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 368, recorded Friday, September 14th, 2018. Messing with Dongles.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron and by FSR.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about the news and information that we have gathered this week. First and foremost, her name is Kirsten Nelson, and she is a fantastic AV industry veteran. She knows a lot of stuff. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with this very great group of people.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun today. Also with us is an old friend. His name is Justin Kennington, and he is from the SDVOE Alliance. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tim. I am, to this point, withholding judgment on this group of people.
Oh, no. This is a great group. This is going to be fantastic.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yes. I mean, I'm here, so that automatically discounts it. But other than that, the rest of the group is great.
Fantastic.
And you've already given us a bad impression on our new guest, who has not been on yet, but she is also fantastic. Her name is Caitlin Orsini, and she is from Plantronics. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, how's it going?
Good
to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. All right, so our first story this week comes to us from CMO.com, talking about a new study concerning consumers and voice services. The study surveyed 1,000 homes with smart devices and voice services. One of the findings was that 31% of those surveyed used voice services for smart home control, which I find fascinating. Colin Morris from Adobe Analytics said in the article, quote unquote, "Technology trends come and go, but we think voice is here to stay." I would actually echo that. Kirsten, we'll start on you with you on this. What does this consumer adoption mean for the AV industry as a whole?
Yeah, I like that you said I would echo that when you're talking about voice.
That was not intentional, but thank you.
That was clever. I think that's the understatement of the year. I think that's, wow, newsflash, voice is here to stay. I definitely agree. I've talked to a lot of, and when I think about the consumer side, it's going to be how we're interacting with brands. You know, I was just talking about this with somebody at Starbucks the other day. We were talking about how I know a bunch of brand agencies are already working on the specific voices that brands are going to have, like the nuances of the voice. You know, they're already so far ahead of us. Brands are already working on the fact they're going to be interacting with us primarily that way. So I think what it means is we're going to have to be savvy to what, like, the actual experience of a voice, what the expectations are. You know, it's not just, you know, as we listen to Alexa change her tone and kind of gradually become a little more casual in her responses as she learns from us. Oh, she's responding to me right now. Oops. I think that we're going to have to be cognizant of that as we're doing commercial installs too. Like, what does this voice have to sound like? What does it have to recognize? What tasks does it need to manage? But moreover, how do we identify, what does that say about the space we're in? Like, does it need to sound like HAL when we're at Microsoft? Does it need to sound, you know, it's just kind of it's about the vibe that the voice is creating.
All right, that works. Caitlin, from your standpoint, but being on Plantronics, I'm going to ask you about manufacturers. What does it mean for manufacturers as voice becomes not only in residential, but also as it moves into commercial? What do manufacturers need to know?
Well, you know, I mean, we're really interested in this space, particularly how voice is going to cross over into the enterprise, be accepted or be, you know, unaccepted or skeptical in the enterprise. I think in terms of you know, manufacturers, we're seeing people obviously wearing their headsets in the office, talking to, you know, on voice calls, on video calls. But now there's this new sort of jobs to be done, if you will, if you know that metaphor. Now you can control things with your voice. I think it's always going to be still, delightful when you say turn on the lights and lights actually turn on. I mean, I don't know, from where I stand, I still think that's a magical moment. There's a lot of magical moments to be created. But I will say that voice is very personal. I think back to Kirsten's point, what does it sound like? How does it feel? And there's still a lot of discovery issues in this space. How does a consumer know that they can order things online? That's what I thought was really interesting about this. The study is that, it's always been, oh, smart speakers, they play music. Yeah, well, they're a speaker, so they play music. What else can we do with it? Now we're seeing people doing calling, doing shopping. It's just the beginning. Yep.
Yeah. Justin, from your standpoint, either from what integrators need to know, but also from manufacturers, because you've been in manufacturing for several years. So what do manufacturers need to know, and then how can they help the integrators as they move into this space?
I don't know how to solve the problem of these things listening to me all the time. Freaks me out. I don't have an Alexa. I don't want an Alexa. I'm not installing an NSA listening device in my home. If I'm in a public space, okay, fine. Expectation of privacy is lower. But I mean, seriously, what we're talking about here is this thing's going to listen to, record, and transmit everything you say. I get it, to a big bank of computers, not to somebody who's just actually cares what I'm talking about at home. But
your phone is already could be activated for that purpose too. So,
That's why I keep a drill in my desk and I just put it right through the back of my phone to make sure it's dead. I didn't know. You're right. I get it. I mean, could be, but here's devices that are designed to be, right? I mean, at some point I'm going to have to trust that somebody who made this phone isn't, trying to spy on me through the back door. If they are, that's a sort of massive trust violation, and I'm sure they'll get in big trouble for it one day. But these devices are designed for listening, and they're providing a service. It's of value. I don't question that. I'm sharing my own Luddite tendencies here, I guess. I don't have one. I don't want one for these reasons. And so how much of the market does that attitude represent? I don't know. And if it's significant, how in the world do manufacturers attack that problem? I sort of can't imagine. I mean, Apple's approach is part of it, right? Again, there's trust here. I'm trusting that the system works the way I'm told. But, Siri only listens when I'm explicitly talking to Siri. And so I'm cool with that. I talk to Siri. I tell Siri to turn my lights on and off. But
let me
it weirds me out.
Yeah. Let me ask this though: is it maybe a generational thing? Because you said the expectation of privacy in public is a little bit less than your home. Is it maybe a generational thing where folks who are maybe younger than you, coming up behind you, that they have a less expectation of privacy? So a device that's listening that helps them in their daily life, whether it's in the home or in the office, they get that and they understand that, and it's a natural thing? Or do you think that it is maybe, folks who are concerned about privacy simply don't want these things, and so they won't be part of their work environment?
Well, I think it's all trends, right? I think it is likely that these darn kids today just that will be more open to it, right? I guess they live in that strange social media, put everything on the internet. I guess I should also say that I personally barely have any social media accounts. What I do post online about myself is all false.
I'm actually kind of seeing, I hate to use the term millennials because I hate that, but if we talk about the younger demographic, I think there's much more education around privacy and an expectation of, hey, I want it to listen this time and I don't want it to listen this time, and they understand that. I don't think that they necessarily post everything all the time, overshare all of them. I think they're very actually responsible about, this is my work life, this is what I want it, how I want to be, this is what I want to share, this is my social life, this is my art account where I post my crafts or whatever. So I think they're quite savvy. In terms of, I agree, there has to be a value added in order to give up or not give up or be comfortable with a different sense of policy. So I am seeing some of that kind of implementation. For example, there's a push-to-talk way to talk to these voice assistants so that they're not always on. They're not listening for that wake word. So I think there's options for sure.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing, Justin. You can turn them off. You can mute them. There's a button.
Hey, I talked to Siri. Siri controls my Lutron lights. I'm getting a plug-in for my favorite lighting control guys. That's not paid. I paid them.
It's not.
You know,
Although
Siri can be listening all the time, though. I think it's interesting that you trust Siri, but
I
you
know. I know.
others.
Uh-huh.
If I find out she's betraying me, I'll kill her.
Caitlin, I will give you a piece of advice. Do not just don't try to understand Justin's logic. I just
Okay.
Our next story comes from AVNetwork.com and Henry Clifford asking if you are quote unquote ready for resimercial. This term, resimercial, which is a combination of residential and commercial, in case you didn't catch that.
Oh, I thought that was commasidential.
No. It was it's growing in popularity as residential integrators are doing more and more commercial. Infocom this year at the show in Vegas had an integrated life section on the show floor. We've done stories on our residential show with Matt Scott, ResiWeek. Actually, our AV social team took a look at this this week as well. From the article, quote unquote, you already understand talking to the residential dealers. You already understand residential custom installation inside and out. Your company is used to fielding calls at all hours of the day. Imagine a client who uses your services during normal business hours. Does that sound too good to be true? Some of that is accurate. I would suggest to Mr. Clifford that he may be painting a too rosy of a picture for residential dealers, because there are certainly some commercial clients who will call you, quote unquote, after hours. I've had some, I'm sure that you guys have as well. Caitlin, I want to start with you on this. What sort of hurdles, as these folks get into, do they have to overcome when they're looking at what has traditionally been, just the homeowner and their home, and they start moving into the office and the work environment?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting from my perspective, because I've typically worked with or thought about mobile workers who are taking calls from their home, who are taking calls from the airport. And I find it interesting to see now, it's an open office, there's more noise. So I think from our perspective, understanding how you make the audio quality hold up in environments that are common at home and on the go, but now are going to be more common actually in the office itself.
Makes sense. Justin, how would you advise a residential dealer wanting to get into commercial?
I think it's funny that you asked the question that way, because as I read this article about resimercial spaces, I thought to myself, first of all, these spaces are real, right? This trend is real. I don't have any questions about that. But then this article goes on to argue that this is a great way for residential integrators to move into commercial. But these are, from a technology perspective, these are commercial spaces, right? From an aesthetic perspective, they're sort of residential. But people want to bring their own device and use an iPad, because they do that at home. And yes, that's possible in the commercial environment, but only using commercial level technologies that are prepared for, 30 people in the room trying to use an iPad to display at the same time. And the list goes on. It's there's nothing that residential prepares you for in commercial, in resimercial, that it doesn't also prepare you for in commercial. There's no difference. So to your question, I think what I guess they need to prepare for is a different mindset of customer, right? Somebody who's more focused on, hopefully, on sort of measurable business results, on specific kind of broad requirements that are hopefully scoped by thinking about all of their different users, whereas a residential environment is much more about one user and their family, and these very specific, very custom environment that they want. There are certainly different technologies that you need to be familiar with. Some of the basics are the same, like how you distribute wired video. The technologies in commercial and resi are kind of overlap a lot, but again, like how to do wireless video. An Apple TV is a fantastic device at home for hooking up your iPad wirelessly to your TV. But anybody who's ever tried to put 50 or 100 Apple TVs on one corporate network quickly learns that there are just problems that Apple TV never set out to solve with that. So resimercial seems like an irrelevant middle step And if you want to get into commercial, then you need to go learn about what are the needs of commercial clients, what are the needs of those spaces, and what are the technologies that fill those needs. Now, the good news is you have a leg up, from somebody off the street who doesn't know those technologies at all because there's overlap.
Yeah. And actually, Kirsten, that's a question I was going to ask you. What is the overlap? What translates well between these two spaces?
Well, yeah, I think it's funny because I think the real opportunity here that he kind of could have really dug into is co-working spaces, right? Like, this is really what he's talking about is co-working spaces. All these people who think they can open up a storefront and put a bunch of desks in it and then a bunch of couches. So it feels like Google and people will come here and work, and it's always that aspirational thing. I think the only part that makes it residential is that, we've got a sofa and a ping pong table. But, I
read that somewhere in here.
Oh yeah, exactly. Everything's going to be on tap. But that's the essential. And if you can get that cool, coffee machine that comes out of the counter that you can control with the Crestron control panel, then that's the future. But anyway, I think about co-working spaces, and I think about there's this other new thing where it's already happening here in Brooklyn, Denizen and Bushwick. It's a brand new housing development that is specifically built with built-in co-working spaces, maker spaces, and collaboration areas, right? So it's already built for the, you work from home crowd. Now you can work from home. And I think that's kind of where the cool stuff could be happening with this. If you're going to get into commisidential, I like that better than resimercial.
That's much more blocky to say, though.
Yeah, it's kind of fun though. I always like the more tedious version of everything, but I think there's a lot of interesting overlap there. It's how people are working today. People aren't going to the office as much. It's just a different thing. And I think that's where the opportunity is where else are they working, and how can you outfit it with stuff that works in those spaces.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought another interesting point there was they talked about the goal of sort of hiding the technology and making it more comfortable. Personally, just from my own background, if it works well, if your technology works well, it will definitely be invisible. It doesn't really matter if you can see it. If you don't have to fuss with it and change the cables a whole bunch, that's really what makes it disappear. More than anything else. But we personally, at Plantronics, I will tell you, our office looks a lot like those pictures. We have couches, we have an aquarium, we have waterfalls. And I will say one of the things is it just gives you a different vibe. So you have this different energy. To your point about, I work from home, but I'm not at home, because I do think working at home, you're in kind of your own space. When you're working individually but together, there's a sort of different vibe that I think is really important to workers.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, our last story here comes from us from our friends over at AV Magazine about Coca-Cola's new integrated workspace transformation and how the soft drink company developed their headquarters in South Africa to provide seamless data sharing, managing meeting rooms and scheduling. From the article, quote unquote, flexibility was key when designing the spaces and deploying the technology throughout. Justin, I'll start with you on this. What should integrators understand about this new workspace? And we kind of already talked about it in the last article, but what these new workspaces, whether it's the co-working spaces that Kirsten talked about, or it's new offices with waterfalls, what should integrators understand about these new flexible workspaces?
There's nothing new under the sun, right? Talk to your customer, find out what they're trying to achieve from a functional perspective, right? It's not their job to use this box, that technology or other, but how do you want to work? What are the problems that you have today? And then it's your job as the integrator to identify the technology solutions, the product solutions that can make that happen, whether it's a fully integrated workspace transformation or a co-working space, or just a plain old 10-person conference room, because I think people still use those sometimes. Understand the problem that someone has and solve that problem, right? That's how you make any business successful.
Absolutely. Kirsten, where can integrators bring the most value when it comes to designing and integrating these spaces?
Yeah, I think when we talk about, what it means to collaborate when you're trying to do a good integrated workspace, Everyone always uses the word seamless, but everyone uses that in like a million different ways. And I feel like we're still not quite there. I think for me, the most important thing they can bring is access. Like, so when you walk in, well, first you can walk in because you know the meeting room's available. And then, all that stuff where I want to access a particular kind of media and show it a particular kind of way, interact with it a particular kind of way without having to think about it. Like Caitlin was saying, like, let's keep it invisible. Let's keep it effortless. But I think access is really the thing. People want to be able to get everything that's on any device or, on a server beyond the room, without having to think about it or plug something else in. And I kind of wonder if we're there yet. I've been talking to a few integrators, one in particular that has a demo room where they can just walk in and push a button and their laptop is recognized and then instantly goes on the screen. This can happen. I just wonder, but I think their clients constantly walk in there and go, you can do that? And they already have the technology to do it, but they never do it. So it's just interesting. I think we're still messing around with a lot of dongles. I kind of like that as a catchphrase.
I like that.
That's my show title, Tim.
Wouldn't be the first time we had it on a show title. Caitlin, last question for you is, what are manufacturers doing to support this new move to these new spaces?
We've always sort of taken the approach to, we're part of an ecosystem, right? We're the last 3 feet. We have been audio, now we're audio and video, now with Polycom. So we understand where we are in the chain, and we work with each platform and other concepts to try and make those magical moments happen. So we understand where we are. To Kirsten's point, you would think that pushing a button and starting a meeting is relatively straightforward, but there's a lot under the hood that needs to be done. And, it's kind of a messy problem. So we're right in the middle of it, looking at each problem, working with each partner, to be able to enable those great features.
All right. Speaking of meeting spaces, we actually have a webinar on this in a couple of weeks, September 25th at 1 p.m. with my buddy Mike Shen, Victoria Ferrari, and Ernie Beck. You can set up on our website. Folks, that has been our show. Thank you so much. Miss Kirsten Nelson, how can people find you?
You can find me mostly for the articles I write for avixa.org these days. It's the best way to find me.
All right, very good. Mr. Justin Kennington, how can people find you and or the SDVOE Alliance?
You will find the Alliance at sdvoe.org or at sdvoe on Twitter.
All right, and you already said you don't do social media, so don't bother.
Yeah, totally. Liar.
Don't bother looking for Justin there. Hey, thank you so much, ma'am. You've been a pleasure to have. How do people find you or Plantronics?
You can find me on Twitter at Caitlin_Orsini, or come on by our Plantronics website and send us a message.
All right, very good. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me on the Twitters. At this point, I'm still Bears lost to the Green Bay Packers a week ago, but you can go by the website, AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. I mentioned 2 of those you can find. One is our weekly look at the residential space with my buddy Matt Scott hosting. AV Social posted a new one this week where they looked at resimercial, one of the stories we did this week. Also, while you're there, check out our underwriter section. These are the folks who support us and help us financially, help us bring you AVWeek and all the others. SDVOE Alliance is one of those. So we thank them for their support. All that and more at AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.